What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we're going to be diagnosing an oil problem with our buddy's 60 LS engine. So first off, just a little backstory about this motor. He was driving back from his shop to his house and all of a sudden had lost oil pressure. And so he was ready to just pull the engine and go ahead and get it refreshed. We're not sure if it was an oil pressure sensor. They had already actually started pulling the engine before I'd ever even got to it. So it could be just an oil pressure sensor. It could be, you know, the infamous LS cam bearings. It could be a few different things. But he said it lost all oil pressure, which is kind of suspect because he kept driving it and there was no knock. So that leads me to believe that maybe it was just a sensor on that note. But anyway, it was time he wanted to pull it out of the car. It's a really nice Tahoe. He wanted to pull it out of there, get it freshened up, throw a nice little cam in it. So like I said, in today's video, we're going to throw this thing up on the stand, tear it apart, and see what we can find. So first step, before you throw it on to your engine stand, do yourself a favor, pull that back cover off, get your flywheel off there, and get your back cam plate and main seal off there. And so that way, when you get it up on the stand, you're not having to get behind the little plate with the wrench and get all those 10mm bolts that just make life easier for you. Now that we got it onto the engine stand, we're going to go ahead and just start ripping this thing down. So the biggest things that I want off this is pretty much everything ultimately. We're going to make sure that they've drained all their oil, which I don't think they have because I keep spilling oil from the oil cooler lines there. So we'll get the oil drained, and then we'll start off with getting the exhaust manifolds off, water pump, all the accessories, get all that stuff out of your way. We'll pull the valve covers, get all that stuff out of the way. When they pulled the engine, I can see they broke a lot of clips and things like that, so he's going to need to get a new set of coils, at least 1 or 2 coils. I think I have some of those here in-house, and a few sensors here and there, but ultimately wasn't too big of a deal there. So let's take a quick second, now that we've got the oil drained, let's go ahead and take a peek at what the oil looks like. It wasn't super bad. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but there are some glitters in there. It doesn't, I don't know, right around here it's pretty bronzy, but not super terrible. I've seen engines with big catastrophic failure that they look crazy. Typically, I like working on engines. When I pull them over here, I'll drain them way beforehand, but if you're ever taking your engine to engine builder, things like that, sometimes it's okay to leave that oil in there because that can tell us a lot just by examining the oil. It's like checking your blood pressure and things like that. So that doesn't look too terrible. A little bit later, I do have an oil filter cut wrench, and we'll cut this oil filter apart too and just examine it and see what it looks like inside there. There you go, guys. The engine is all tore apart. So, I was a little fearful as I started tearing this thing down. Everything that I kept tearing down, I mean, this thing looked pretty dang mint. We pulled the main caps off, main bearings were good. Pulled the rod bearings off, rod bearings were good. We pulled the oil pickup tube, the O-ring that's on there. That is one thing that is notorious for LS, is that O-ring that's around the pickup tube can get pinched or just old and lose its seal there, and you can lose oil pressure there. That was good. The cam plate that's right down here, They usually have a little O-ring right there. If those get too flattened out, you can lose oil pressure there. Everything seemed good, so I was like starting to get fearful that it was just a sensor. Not that that's a bad thing. You can see that this thing was just oiled down from top to front, back to side, whatever. So on that note, I mean, it's a good thing to pull it out and get it rebuilt anyway. At least get it freshened up, new seals and things like that. But we have found our culprit. Once again, it is the notorious failure for LS engines, in my opinion. Out of all the failures that I've ever seen on these engines, it is this. And it is the cam bearings. So as you guys could see how bad I was struggling trying to get that cam out of there. See this front bearing? That thing is wiped. This is the one that had me locked in. And you can see that back one right down there is pretty good and wiped. Let me see if I can zoom in. She's wiped out. The center one actually came out with the cam. Yeah, they're all pretty bad. This is the center one, and as you can see, it's pretty beat up from getting it pulled out and stuff like that. But how you can tell it's wiped out is look at the inside. See all the brass copper look there that you got? Your cam bearings, when they go in, they don't look that color. So when they are that color, you know that they have went through their coating and all that good stuff and into the material itself. So those cam bearings are wiped. I have a sneaking suspicion that this one, maybe it actually turned inside there, and that's maybe why he lost his oil pressure. The oil goes through these little holes right there and feeds oil to the cam. I'm not sure how the journals work in all this, but I'm sure if you clog up one or two of them, it may starve oil and passages through the rest. Like I said, not 100% sure on that, but that is our culprit right there. That is a good sign, and that is the least of our worries, really. When we tore this engine down, our biggest goal was we wanted to make sure the crank was good. And I'll show you the crank. All the journals and all the surfaces are really good, real smooth, no grooves that I can catch with my finger. Anything like that. So camshaft is good. Rods, pistons are all good. It wasn't a boosted engine or anything like that. So those are all reusable. So we're gonna go ahead, rebuild this engine. We're gonna do new rings, new oil pump, all new seals, gaskets, all the above. We're gonna do a new cam, new lifters, kind of just keep it mild. The biggest work that I gotta do on this engine to get it rebuilt, as most anything, is all the exhaust manifold bolts pretty much all broke. There's only like 3 holding this side on and maybe 4 holding this side on. So that is going to be a tough little chore getting those bolts out of the head there. I did notice when I drained the rest of the oil on the drain plug, the little magnet, there was a lot of material on the magnet. And when I pulled off the oil pan, as you can see, there's a lot of garbage and sludge and things inside there. Look down in the bottom of there. You can see right over there, I'd wiped my finger and got a big old chunk of what seems to be material. Probably a mixture of cam bearing material, probably a mixture of dirt, stuff like that. The other thing that I really noticed about this engine in particular, besides all the gunk and grime, you can see all the innards are just grimy. It's 250,000 mile motor, so it's time. But one side of the engine was really, really clean. Other side was kind of gunked up and gummed up. So if you look inside the heads, this was the dirtier one. That one was the cleaner one. You could see how the surfaces were just much cleaner. And the push rods themselves, the push rods on the clean side were really clean. Push rods on the dirty side, I mean, they were just gritty, dirty feeling. So it was time. We're gonna go ahead and send this block off to get hot tanked, get all cleaned up. We'll start degreasing everything and get a parts list together and get it all ordered. We're gonna order from Brian Tooley Racing. Those guys over there, they're super awesome, super knowledgeable, and their parts are pretty affordable. So if you're ever trying to build an LS, whether it's just a street rod, daily driver, high horsepower, they got the stuff you need, and they can help you out with cam specs, all the above for what you're desiring. This customer, you know, the typical, I want a little lope, but nothing crazy. We don't want to change the tune, nothing too dramatic like that, but just have some lope on it. He's going to do long tube headers and a few other little things as he throws it back in. So that is it. The other thing we're going to do, is I always change out these little barbells. They're inside the oil passage there. They're plastic ones there, and they have a single O-ring on them. I always order the barbells. They're kind of they're cut out of aluminum, and then they have 3 O-rings all the way past them. That is another oiling failure point is right there. So when we rebuild this block, we're going to do everything it takes to just compensate for all the oil failures and things like that. So as I said, I'm going to go ahead and put a parts list together, get a hold of those guys, and get everything ordered. In the next video, when we start rebuilding this, and probably do a kind of a how-to on certain things, you know, I'm sure the LS being built has been beaten like a dead horse, you know, type of situation. But there's a lot of things that we do to make high horsepower in our race cars, and I'll show you what we do in particular to make them last a long time and handle high horsepower. So that is it for now. Like I said, in the next video, I will kind of post up what all the parts list costed us, what all the parts that we purchased, and things like that. So you guys, if you're wanting to do something similar, you'll kind of know what it's going to take to get your parts list. And if you're building it yourself, you know, you'll save on labor and stuff like that. So that is it for now. Appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you comment in there how dumb we are, and we'll talk to y'all later.